feel like I'm playing, we're hot, right? We're good, all right. So, Bachelorette number 1. If Christian was a beer, no. We've talked a little bit this afternoon already about Oregon's reputation. I made a comment about it kind of being in our DNA. We heard a lot of great examples from Congressman Blumenauer, but let's make it a little bit more tactical and practical for the folks that are here in the audience today. How has Oregon's reputation as a destination with this strong stewardship ethic influenced the way you operate, your business philosophy, the way you do business, the way you might position your business or organization, maybe some of your future plans? Danielle, could you start for us?
Well, from a casino standpoint, working for 2 different casinos in Oregon, I think the larger of the 2 on the coast, operated by the Siletz tribe, being a destination, we market internationally. We take advantage of everything Travel Oregon has to offer in being able to market ourselves, our tribe, our heritage, our culture, to entice those travel and tour operators to come in and visit and see what we have to offer. Working in Southern Oregon now for Clamoya, we're quite a bit more rural. So we're just taking the lead now in following some of the protocol that the other tribes have taken to really enlighten people to what we have to offer in the community for sustainable travel, for a destination that has so much to offer. Where I am now is so much more diverse than where I was. Not to say the coast doesn't have a lot to offer, but from the national parks to the lava beds into Northern California, it's an absolutely astonishing environment. Every day I'm amazed. Working with Discover Klamath from a DMO perspective, we're again working with Travel Oregon and focusing a lot with Oregon Tribal Tourism on what we have to offer. Again, my main goal is to showcase what Oregon has to offer culturally and with the heritage. Myself being of Modoc descent, it's important to me to showcase to people that are traveling through what was here, what's still here, and we don't want to lose that heritage, we don't want to lose that culture.
Great. So. Thank you, Danielle. Christian, how about you? How has this reputation for sustainability here in Oregon influenced the way you're doing business there at Hopworks?
People are continually challenging us. Am I on here? People are challenging us to green up, even as far as we've gone with our concept. The errant Scotch broom in our yard that we didn't see, somebody saw it. They complained. So that was a prime example of how you can overlook some things that are right in front of your entryway until they go into bloom, and they're pretty obvious. So we've made tremendous strides. They ask us, where our solar panels are. Solar PV and solar thermal are things we're looking at. Things we couldn't afford to approach in our infancy of the business due to the $170,000 price tag for that structure, but we're looking into it now that we have a bit of cash flow to work with. So, where are you sourcing everything? We've done a lot, but there's a lot more to do. And so you kind of continually look to the opportunities. And you got to be open-minded. You can't be too proud about what you've done so far, and just strive to be more and more thorough every day.
Nancy, how about you? From a nonprofit Museum of Science and Industry standpoint, how has this reputation influenced some of your future plans or the way you're currently doing business?
Well, I came to Oregon first as a visitor, and many, many people who now call Oregon home have that same story. I came here 25 years ago and fell in love with the place, and I came because of all the things I heard about in Oregon. Livability, coast, mountains, outdoor recreation, and a really progressive attitude about environment. And I stayed because of those things. So where I am at a science museum, it's both an attraction for visitors coming to the region, but also serves families and people in the local community and in the region here. I think about those things. People have chosen to live here for some of the same reasons that people choose to visit. And so they have a pretty high expectation of what a science museum does, how we conduct ourselves, how we walk the talk. And I personally believe that science understanding is a really important lens for making decisions. And so we try to apply that to everything from where you get your electrical power to choosing paper or plastic, and try to make it really real and relevant to the reason that people have chosen to visit here or live here.
Great. You know, Christian, you mentioned something kind of interesting. You've obviously positioned Hopworks as being a sustainable business. And you have folks that it sounds like are seeking you out because you have good beer and a sustainable business model, and have embraced sustainability as a business. It also sounds like you've got some folks that are kind of holding you accountable to an even higher standard. You know, you've kind of put yourself out there, and they're coming, and they're also letting you know what you could do, perhaps even a little bit better. Do you find that to be true, or do you have consumers that are seeking you out because you are a sustainable business?
I say undoubtedly. I mean, not only does it feel good to do these things, there is tremendous marketing opportunity. And we see about 3,600 customers a week. We employ 81 people, so we've managed to retain in an industry that has about 100% turnover annually. We have about 30% due to this ethos. You know, we have a wonderful place that embraces the environment, embraces people, and your workforce responds. When they respond, then in turn it trickles down to the customer experience, and they respond. So we kind of distill it down to 4 pillars. You know, you got world-class beer, world-class food, world-class service, and then this environmental or sustainable ethos. And so most operations are just struggling with 2. They're just trying to figure out how to produce food and serve it properly. We got these other things that are make us more interesting infinitely, make us more responsible, but ultimately drive business to us because people want to vote with their dollar. It's an easy thing to throw $4 at a pint of organic beer. You can throw $3.50 at a pint of conventional beer, or pony up an extra 25 or 50 cents to drink with confidence that you're making a little difference.
Drinking with confidence. I kind of, all in favor? Yeah. Thanks, Christian. Nancy, how about you? I mean, do you find that there are consumers that are seeking you out because you're offering them that kind of program, that kind of maybe a foray into this sustainability ethos that Christian referred to? How has that impacted your business?
Well, it certainly has in our business practices, and we measure our business success on a triple bottom line. And our board, which represents community members, has adopted that. And so there's pretty high expectation. And then once you start talking about that, you have set yourself out there where others are going to hold you accountable. So it's kind of like the Scotch broom in the parking lot. We get dinged if there's not enough bike parking, and we've been promoting a program in the evening, you know, at one of our after hours events, and we don't have enough bike parking. Or we have disposable stuff in our cafe. You know, we get called on that. So we like that. We're intentionally putting ourselves out there because we want to be held accountable, but we find that we are. So it's influenced the way we do things currently. We also are in a wonderful position to be able to expand in a few years, and the whole community is working together. It's one of the things that I think is unique in Portland, that we have local government, regional government. You heard our congressional representation, but business, private sector, education, people working together. And as we have a chance to expand physically on our site, and if you haven't visited, please do. We're in walking distance right across that Hawthorne Bridge that the Congressman talked about. We can bring people together with mass transit in a planful way that thinks about how that landmark district of the future will be an extension of downtown, and to be part of the connection with the education community and the business community. So it certainly is part of our planning going forward too.
All right, thanks. Danielle, we're sitting here in a room with a couple hundred folks from around the world that care deeply about the ecology of the planet, about sustainability, about the tourism industry. You have been involved with major attractions in a couple of different regions of Oregon, the coast and down in southern Oregon. Obviously very involved with your tribe, and you're currently involved as a board member of a local destination marketing organization. Could you talk to us a little bit about where you see the nexus, the overlap, the synergy perhaps, between the tourism industry and a group of consumers really around the world that are becoming that much more aware of sustainability, wanting to embrace greater environmental stewardship? Where's the connection for us in the tourism industry and this growing awareness within the world's population?
Well, from my perspective, the connection is really just in education, in educating ourselves and the communities we're in, and then using what we learn and showcasing that to the rest of the world and the societies out there that are looking to visit a green city, or as the congressman said, people want to stay in the green hotels. They want to visit these cities that offer the bike trails, the hiking, cycle Oregon. They'll look for those things. So that synergy exists in the educational perspective from our local DMO in Klamath County. We're working right now to educate the rest of Oregon, Northern California. We're targeting all of the Northwest and educating people on what we're learning now as a community. So we actually recently adopted, it's actually a roughly 70-page document, Klamath Vision 2020. So we're taking our community members and what they'd like to see in change and how they see sustainability working. And we're taking that and we're educating our local representatives and the people that have an opportunity to voice opinions. And in moving forward, the tourists, the other countries, tour operators, they're seeing that and they're able to grasp that. And they're able to realize that we're educating ourselves to move forward. In my opinion, and actually several others that sit on the board with me at Discover Klamath, we've kind of decided that sustainability is like democracy. It's not just a means to an end. It's a way of life. And so we're taking that perspective and we're changing the way people see our community, and from a tribal perspective the same way. From my business perspective, how can I make a change and how am I going to make that change noted? So I believe it's just the education.
Great. Christian, a few years ago, the Travel Oregon did some focus groups around their advertising, and we were down in Southern California and talking to a group of folks in a room about their impressions of Oregon and the current advertising campaign, and there was one guy that sat there the entire evening and really didn't say a word. The other folks were very engaged, very talkative, and so finally the facilitator kind of called this gentleman out a little bit and said, what do you want to make sure the folks back in Oregon know about your perception or your thoughts or your feelings about this? And he looked at the facilitator and said, don't screw it up. And the facilitator kind of looked at him and said, would you care to elaborate on that a little bit for us? And he said, yeah. He goes, I may never get to Oregon, but it does me good to know that there's a place like that exists. And I think he's speaking for any destination that really cherishes its natural landscapes, its natural environment, holds those things precious, takes steps to not only preserve but enhance them. And that's, I think, what he was kind of saying to us. He may never get a chance to visit a place like that, but it kind of does him good to know a place like that exists. So in that same regards, where do you see this connection between the tourism industry and this growing awareness of a sustainability ethic within our consumers?
There's only really, one way to operate sustainably going forward, and it's kind of the model that we're speaking about, So it's like just a matter of kind of cultivating this and moving the herd slowly towards the target, which is everybody operating with this ethos. So I kind of see it like we're talk about awareness and education. It's a rising tide. This is, at least for us at Hopworks, I'm thinking about this stuff every day, and it's this inclusive model. You know, you're bringing everybody together along on this ride. We have 3,600 exposures a week. We can affect people's awareness and consequently their lives, and they're going to pursue businesses and experiences and places that share that same type of ethos. So I think that it's just nothing but upside, nothing but green down the road. You know? So people are going to continue. Ecotourism is obviously alive and well. People travel for beer. I mean, I can only speak from my background. There's 80 breweries in the state. There's about almost half of those are in this city. And I can't tell you how many people come through our doors every week from some corner of the world. We get a lot of international travelers and a lot of domestic travelers that are here for beer. And we come up as a great, I guess, example of one way to take this beer, one way to interpret beer and one way to interpret business. And I'd have to say that the model we've chosen to pursue really wins people over pretty quickly. And it's not that challenging for them to accept it. And then once they're aware of it, they may go home and decide that there's ways they can pursue professional and personal, I guess, means of greening it up as well. So they get excited about it. And, with the pint in your hand, it's kind of easy to do. So.
Yeah. Nancy, you've served as the chair of the board of the local destination marketing organization, much like Danielle is currently serving on the board of Discover Klamath. You chaired the board of Travel Portland for a while. And, let's face it, we're seeing the tenets of sustainability show up more and more as folks talk about the quality of life and the livability of the place, much like Congressman Blumenauer did during his prepared remarks. In the same manner, I guess, I'd like to ask you if highlighting a destination's sustainability, highlighting a destination's livability efforts actually increase its tourism appeal.
Absolutely. I think about the motivations of why people travel and where they choose to go, and many of those are about where they land when they get there and what they plan to do. So I think the sense of place, the uniqueness, the cultural attractions, all of those are part of the motivation for why people choose to travel. And in the business that I'm in, we think a lot about families and people doing things together, and particularly during this recession, one of the places that continued to be pretty strong were destinations where families could be together. Sometimes the people weren't traveling as far, but they were still looking for ways to engage with other people in a family-friendly way. And increasingly, as we communicate now with technology, not so much face-to-face, we're finding in our adult evenings, we do science pubs and we do adult evenings, and people want to get together because it's a chance to do something socially. So I think that translates into why people travel. Recently, we hosted an elder hostel program where the elders brought grandchildren along. And they were traveling from all around the country to a destination where they could do things with grandchildren. So I think it's an interesting part of the market, and absolutely the sense of place, and a way that we can promote that in a unified way, integrated way, I think is a really important message that travelers are really receptive to.
Okay. Now, Christian, we were talking earlier about consumers that are seeking you out because they believe that you've embraced this sustainability ethos, and so they may be there and at the same time calling you out because of the Scotch broom or something else. But you've also got consumers that are coming to you because they've heard about the great food, great beer, and great service. They may not be aware of this sustainability ethos. What are some of the things that you've done within Hopworks to communicate with your patrons that you are operating more sustainably?
I guess in an effort to be humble as a business, you know, walk softly and carry a big stick. That's kind of our philosophy. You know, the more people dig into what we're doing, which we encourage them to do, I think the more proud they become to be associated with us. You know, so. The braggarts, the people that wear that U.S. Green Building Council on their chest, so to speak, you know, that's one way to do it, and that's easy. But what's hard is really developing a very thorough concept, you know. So we're the only carbon neutral brewery in the world. We're the only 100%, or not 100%, but we're the only all organic brewery in Oregon. We're the only brewery producing beer with only 100% renewable power. We're the only brewery using biodiesel to make all our beer that's Oregon-made fuel. You know, so there are all these things, but we don't really wear it on our chest, so to speak. I'm rewriting the menu with maybe the idea of creating some bullet points, but we like to give a lot of tours. We invite people into our brewery. We train our staff to engage them. We have the information available on our website, but we try to kind of walk a fine line where you don't want to brag about it, but you want people to seek you out. So we kind of create content, and then our kind of model is we don't have a big advertising campaign. We have a PR guy we work with. So we kind of develop content and story, and let it get pulled through. There's the push, the Bud and Millard cores, they push things through. And we try and create a great story so that people get interested and they write stories about us and pull it through. And it means a lot more to the consumer when you engage them in that way. So they can stumble upon you rather than get slapped in the face with it.
I'm really glad you used the term story. How do you afford consumers the opportunity to become part of your story?
With a low impact purchase like a pint of beer, $10 or $15 experience, it's easy to do. It's not like buying a Prius, waiting in line to spend $30. It's really, so I mean, we have 30, like I said, 3,600 customers. We see a lot of impact, but it's an easy way for people to upgrade their lifestyle, and in hard economic times, they're doing that more and more. So when they sit down in our environment and see the beautiful sandblasted beams, and they see 80 bike parking spots out front, and they see recycled planter keg shells with drought-tolerant native species in that my mom installed, and they see drought-tolerant native species in our landscape. They see pervious pavement in the parking lot. They see rain barrels out back. You don't have to say much, because those things are very visual, and people are visual, and they're engaged by that. They'll come in and they go, what the hell is going on here? Really, we get that all the time. People just love to sit down and just kind of look around our place. So we really try to, like I said, build a high-quality experience. It just happens to be very green, and they ask questions.
I was going to say, you probably wind up with consumers that are asking you as much about, do I want to get an amber, or do I want to go with a stout, as you do, how could I recreate that whole rain barrel thing at my house? How did you do that? And how could I do something like that in my house? Yeah, and there you go.
Compact fluorescent bulbs. There's so many things they can do, and everybody can participate in, buying green power. We're on the City of Portland compost program. 85% of what comes into our building leaves in the form of compost and recycling. So all those things you can do at home too. So I think as people take a little piece of that as awareness, they're like, wow, there's something to this.
Yeah. Danielle, how about you? What are how are you communicating with your customers? Steps that you're taking to operate more sustainably.
From which hat?
Whichever hat, because you were up here wearing many, so.
I won't move again, I promise. One thing that was, you didn't fail to mention, it wasn't in my bio. I have a small business myself in Klamath Falls, and I am a florist amongst many other things. But I have my own following, which are primarily the other small businesses in the community, because we only stock organic and locally grown green plants, fresh cut flowers that are not imported. I have specific measures that I have with my small business, and that's just word of mouth. So I can completely agree with Christian on that. You want people to pull, you don't push it out there. And being a small business, sometimes you don't have the money to back you to be able to push that out. So word of mouth is very important from a small business perspective in the Klamath community. And there's a lot of networking opportunities, especially with the Klamath Vision 2020 that I mentioned. Those practices are in place so that as a small business you can let others know what sustainable practices, what measures you're taking to be green, how you're operating your business out of a building that was built in the early 1900s, how you're operating that in the greenest fashion possible, being that it's probably hasn't had any carpets changed in 70 years, so you go concrete. But from a casino perspective, it's a little touchier. There's a lot of politics involved. However, I won't get into that too much, but from the casino that I'm working with now, I was telling a few folks earlier today, I'm very proud that we're finally going paperless for all of our drawings. So I don't think a lot of communities realize that just the casino industry, how much paper goes through one property. We're one of the smallest in Oregon, and I can't even tell you in dollars how much we're going to be saving, how many groves of trees we're going to be saving just by going virtual. So cutting back on paper. I use all EcoFlex billboards. So the 17 billboards that I put up last year could power one home for 4 months, just with the amount of energy we saved using EcoFlex from the casino. So, and that's one thing that I'm working on with Oregon Tribal Tourism with Kristen's help, and Brian with Sustainable Travel. We're going to be working on a STEP program to pull all of these ideas, things that Christian's mentioning, things that we're working on now, and we're going to create the blueprint that you had mentioned earlier, so that the tribes in Oregon can really come together and adopt something in little pieces. You know, you hand someone a document and say, here, do this, and it's going to be overwhelming, especially if it's an independent government from Oregon, and they're not going to want to do it, and it's going to be really hard to get that by. So what we're trying to work on now, so that we can showcase to Oregon, and hopefully it'll be another Oregon first, is to have the 9 tribes really adopt and put into resolution this program in little bits. If we make this little change here, you know, it'll make this change easier, and on into a STEP program. So that's what my goal is right now, is to help make that known in Oregon with the tribal communities and all over the country, and hopefully eventually all over the world, that, you know, tribes might not be well known, but they can get along, and they can work together, and we should be stewards. You know, we are here, we're from here, our heritage and culture is here. So how best do we showcase that and get that across is working together, and again, going back to my statement on education.
No shortage of ambition, Danielle. Well done. Kind of a final question from me, and then I want to open it up to the audience for any questions that they may have for you. This, in many ways, is a conference of true bluebelievers. They're here because they've bought in to many of the concepts that we are talking about here. Congressman Blumenauer challenged us, though, a little bit to spread the gospel, was his term. Of what it is we're seeing, learning, doing here. Given that, could you offer some insight or some suggestions into things that we could all do in returning home to spread that gospel, to assist, to encourage more businesses, more organizations to operate in a more sustainable manner? Nancy?
You know, I think there is so much that we can all do. You're probably doing a lot of it, and I'd love to hear some of the things that are working in your communities. I can speak for the cultural attraction, education community. We're connected here in Portland to science museums, zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens in communities across the country and across the world. And it is a pretty invested and energetic network of organizations that want to partner. And I don't know how much you have tapped into them, but I certainly would say use those partnerships, because what we're all about is education, and we're working with business who I think what we do really well is we're a place for public education. So businesses that are doing good practices can use the cultural attractions as a place to reach the public. And those are places where visitors come. And so it's a great way to spread the word and to kind of walk the walk for what we all believe in. We're also fortunate because we invite people to do hands-on things, and we have a lot of education programs that are really directly about sustainability, and we choose to bring in a lot of community partners in that way. So it isn't just about what we might be doing as one entity, but work with many others in the community. So I think my encouragement would be to think about those partnership connections and how you could use the educational attractions in the community as your partners.
Christian, how about you?
I just encourage everybody to go home with the confidence that when people are given two options of equal quality, if they're given a green alternative that's competitively priced, they're going to choose it. So it's up to you to give them that green alternative. Don't price yourself out of the market. Be smart about it and employ those practices that are maybe within a reasonable budget. But if your price is good and you're a little greener than the other guy in the other town or the other city, you know, whatever you're trying to get a leg up on, they'll find you. You know, for us, it speaks true, and our business was instantly, you know, twice what we ever anticipated. We had to remodel our brewery twice, our kitchen twice. We just added a banquet facility, and we're looking for another site. So that wouldn't have happened. I'm confident that growth curve wouldn't have been there if we had delayed our green initiatives or had to go out there in the first place. So, but you got to believe in it too, you know. So it takes a champion. I guess I'm the squeaky wheel, asking people. You know, I'm the one going around. Even this morning, turning off lights in the brewery. I'm like, come on, you know. It's still this constant education, but eventually you get there, and people get it. You know, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Have confidence.
And drink with confidence. Yeah. Danielle, how about you?
Well, not to sound like a broken record here, but to touch on what Nancy and Christian both said already, it gets back to education. And with my experience with our county and with the tribes, with the state of Oregon, something that Congressman Blumenauer touched on, the gems in the community. So everybody that's in this room right now can all think of a gem in their hometown. Or some sustainable practice that they know of from where they're from. And I would just encourage people to learn more about that and preach it. And that's where the gospel comes in. And to go back, I can't tell you how many times I talk to tourists that come to the casino or at the chamber office, and I'll just be stopping and drop off information, and I'll talk about, Craig Lake, or, go down to the creamery who brews beer using geothermal heat. So all these little local gems, and you become that gospel, and you educate people in the community who go out, and it goes back to marketing too. You tell one person something, and they're going to tell 10 more and 10 more, and that's really how this is going to work and how these communities are going to get stronger.
For all of our marketing budgets, nothing replaces positive word of mouth, no matter how hard we try.
I would just add one additional resource, if you're not familiar with it, that has been really helpful to us, and it's an international network called the Natural Step. Natural Step Network started in Sweden, but in fact the U.S. headquarters for it is here in Portland, but there's also Natural Step Canada. And what it is a system for making business decisions to this whole triple bottom line idea. Where it is really useful is a framework, a science-based framework that is repeatable and defensible, but it's also a great network of other businesses and industries that are really trying to do the same thing, to thrive as sustainable businesses. And so you can search for it online, and they can connect you to a lot of others in your local community that are doing this same work.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. All right. As promised, we've got time for some questions from you out here in our audience. Yes. Do we have a microphone, or do they just need to shout? You're running. Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Hello, thanks. Christian, you had touched on something earlier, which was talking about how your business in its infancy stages wasn't able to maybe pull off some of the things you were in this new business model that you have. And I was hoping that maybe you could elaborate on how you got from point A to point B a little more, and perhaps Nancy could offer a perspective from a nonprofit point of view, since I manage a nonprofit organization here in town called the Portland Hawthorne Hostel. We won the 2009 Best Award for the City of Portland for general sustainability practices last year. And we have bitten off probably every low-hanging fruit we possibly could to ecofy our hostel. And we have also hit a roadblock in terms of maxing out our capacity. We do 10,000 overnights a year. 75% of our guests arrive or use public transportation during their stay. And we have turned away about 50 people just today for our 35-bed hostel. So we have an annual operating budget of about $300,000. We're a nonprofit organization, and we have done everything we possibly can. We'd like to go to the next step, both in increasing our eco-fi-ness and also to allow more people to come and stay with us and share our microcosm of Portland. And I was wondering how you might help us or have some suggestions on how you got from point A to point B. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess cash is king. So certainly there's no substitute for having a business model that can generate a bit of cash flow. But if you can't get the cash together yourself to pursue these things, you need some sort of backer. And fortunately for the big initiatives, solar for one, there's a lot of state and federal money available, and the Energy Trust of Oregon has funds available too. And now banks have recognized that people really want to go for this, and they will actually help to absorb, I think, the down payment or the balance in what you'd have to come up with for cash in hand. So there are a lot of things out there. The low-hanging fruit is really what I encourage people to look for. The compact fluorescents, where you're sourcing your power. Are you guys buying you're buying renewable power? Have you looked at?
The only thing we haven't done is tear down our building.
Yeah, so a huge part of Hopworks was we're sustainably built and operated. So I took a 1948, 16,800 square foot building. My dad was architect, I was a general contractor, we gutted the thing. But we didn't just gut it with a track hoe. We hand dismantled it, salvaged material, and came at it. We recycled what we couldn't use, and we used about a third of our new framing material needs were satisfied from the material we recovered from site. We made all our furniture, bookcases, and booths out of our material. So I'd have to say that part of our success has been actually being able to build sustainably from the ground up. So there are tremendous opportunities. Anytime you break ground or retrofit, you got to ask those decisions, because I would say that was low-hanging fruit, certainly, because maybe you only paid 20% more for the actual equipment, but ongoing you'll get the payback there. So if you've already taken the low-hanging fruit, I'm trying to think of where to steer you with a $300,000 budget to do a lot more, because these things can be somewhat daunting when you're trying to pursue it privately. So I really, if you could tell me specifically what you want to do, I could help after class.
After class.
Yeah.
Nancy, a nonprofit perspective.
I'd be happy to talk with you to sort of separately about the specifics, but I think the fact that you're a nonprofit and that you have a mission, you already have sort of the people side of that three-part equation, and I would think more about that and how you can take what you do from a mission standpoint and market that and get funding that would support either the education portion of what you're doing or just the pure mission side. That's after you've done all the low-hanging fruit things. But I'd be happy to talk with you in more detail.
Another question. Yes.
Hi there. I wanted to know, besides word of mouth, what you consider to be your most effective marketing outreach effort besides word of mouth.
Did you hear Twitter from Christian?
Absolutely. And underground marketing is where it's at, this push-pull thing. It's basically people pursue you because they identify with something you're doing, and then they just pull it into their world, and it's like, virtual Amway. It just goes and goes and goes. I mean, really, in a good way, it's really amazing. We've really enjoyed using that. It's so easy. And there are tools now. All you have to do is update one space, and it'll hit your MySpace, your Facebook, your Twitter, all at once, and your website. And it just goes out into the world. It's try not to do it too often. But whenever you're doing something interesting, that's when you tweet. And it really works. We've had, we can pack our house with a new funky beer release, and you'll see a spike of maybe $500,000 just like that, based on a little tweet. So it works, and everybody can adapt that to their own situation, I think, pretty effectively. Just get a certain amount of comfort with it, find some young techies who show you how to do it, and maybe they'll trade you for whatever you got to offer, you know?
To touch on that
Please.
a little bit from working with, 3 organizations, one that my own small business that has a very small marketing budget, Discover Klamath, it's a nonprofit, the DMO, and then the casino. I won't tell you what my budget is over there. But I think it depends on the industry you're in. My small business, word of mouth, and of course, Facebook and Twitter, you go viral, and it works the best for a small business. From the DMO, from Discover Klamath's perspective, we do a lot of Pearl campaigns, so we're still doing that viral message, but we personalize it to grab people's attention. So we use our website a lot, and we have that ability, a little bit more money to back those mail campaigns, and then back it with an email Pearl campaign. And then from a casino standpoint, sometimes it doesn't work to have Facebook and Twitter. For Vegas casinos, sure, because there's a lot more people. If there was a casino in Portland, it would work. But if you're too secluded down there, it's not going to do much good. There's some people that I know come into the casino down there that don't even have a cell phone, so that have never been on a computer. So you kind of have to gear it toward the industry you're in and the people you're trying to contact. Community forums in Chiloquin, which is just north of Klamath Falls where the casino is located. Community forums work really good to get information out for us. So again, broken record, it depends on the industry and it depends on the area you're in.
Nancy, anything to?
Social media, but it does really depend on who you're trying to communicate with. And we know for sure people are communicating in different ways, and the traditional stuff is not effective at least as much as it used to be. So I would agree with what you said, and I would just add that maybe it's around not just one-to-one connecting with people, but connecting with networks who share interests. So that audience that isn't personally using cell phones probably is being reached through some other network where they do have some affiliation, and so you hook into those hubs and let them help distribute the message for you.
One other thing I'll mention is that there's a phrase we use down there, it's OPM, other people's money. So if you don't have a budget to do something and trying to get some word out, Discover Klamath uses Travel Oregon's money to do certain things. So,
Really?
So, use other people's money. If you don't have the resources you need to get the word out, the networking, it works great, but, if you don't have the resources, tie into something else and become some other kind of redefine yourself to be able to use other people to help.
I can speak to that. We've had a great deal of fun and success creating partnerships with different groups like Ride Oregon Ride, Kristen, they got a great website. We partner with them. We put their logo on a beer bottle, and send it out in our world to the beer shelves across the state and now in British Columbia. So just want to give a shout out to Ride Oregon Ride. Everybody go check it out. It's a great bike online headquarter for all things biking. But anyway, those alignments are amazing. The kind of traction you can get. But for us, we sent cases of beer with Shimano Chris King down to Lance Armstrong's ranch in a race he had down there. So now our beer is in Lance Armstrong's refrigerator, just through some partnerships with some folks. Expose us to a whole new market, and it's goodwill, and it's cool. And, so just fun stuff. A lot of fun to be had, and there's a lot of exposure to be had by using all the work that other people, all the groundwork other people have laid ahead of you to get your word out.
Great. And if you do it with other people's money, so much the better, I guess. Now, at least I know now where our budget's gone. We got time for one more question from the audience. I'm sorry to have to cut you off. We will definitely have a chance to play at the reception with some of these folks. So yes, sir. Right here.
Thank you. I think ultimately our success as a society in attaining the goal of sustainability depends on the extent to which three key partners collaborate. I'm thinking in terms of individuals, households. I'm thinking in terms of industry partners. And I'm thinking in terms of government at the state, at the local, at the federal level. And the question I wanted to pose to the panel is to what extent they're satisfied with the support being provided by the government at the state, federal, and local levels.
Who'd like to go first?
I can just speak from like the construction and development end of it. I just finished building a LEED certified home for myself, and it is hell on earth trying to get that certification and trying to with a bootstrap budget, and even that's how I operate our construction project with the brewery, was reading the USGBC outline for LEED for buildings and trying to navigate that. It's hell. It's not easy. There's no mandates. There's very little support, and it's expensive. So, what's the incentive? You know, you got to really love it to go through that. It's a torturous path, and unless you're in the unless you're in a world where there's unlimited budgets, and you can bring. Forward. But it's not easy and it's expensive, and there aren't a lot of people out there willing to help you on a budget. So that's where I want to see the mandate come in. So you have to do it and invest in the resources to make it easy for everybody to participate in this. Because I can see why people don't do it. You got to really love it in order to pursue this stuff. So, and not everybody loves being tortured by the building department. Just took 6 weeks to get out of it.
Is there anybody that loves being tortured by the building department?
Nobody does, but it shouldn't be torture. It should be easy, and they should be an advocate.
Right.
And they should be a friend in all these
Right.
in all these bureaus, Bureau of Buildings, Plan and Sustainability, whatever, federal level. They should be an advocate and a friend and somebody to escort you through this process instead of making it difficult. You know, and it's really, I mean, that I can say that I'm very frustrated, if you can't tell, with the lack of support. So, I mean, I'll probably get an earful from the city, or it'll probably delay my next permit on polling. Yeah, it's not easy, but don't be discouraged, because it's by going through these processes and being vocal about what you're experiencing, that's the only way it's going to get better. You can't just go it just the way you've gone it before. You got to keep working at it. Don't get frustrated.
Danielle, Nancy, any thoughts from your perspective on your level of satisfaction in terms of the amount of government support you have for your efforts to pursue sustainability?
I think from a county perspective, it's finding the key people that are interested in moving that vision forward. As a community member, having forums and having your voice heard, even though it may or may not get written anywhere or go on to make any permanent decisions, but being heard is important, and our community has given our government has given the rest of the community an opportunity to have our voices heard and create the groundwork to move forward and create a program to move us in the right direction. You know, our commissioners do hear that. You have to find people that you can speak clearly to that'll help you move forward, and you do have to be a squeaky wheel. That's probably the only reason I ended up on Tribal Tourism Working Group with Kristen, is because I called her constantly and she finally couldn't avoid me anymore. But you have to align yourselves with the right people, and it's a very slow process from our county, being that we have a new executive director, a new board as of last year. It's been a very slow process, but we're finally starting to move in the right direction, and it's taken a lot of elbow grease. From a tribal perspective, there's a completely different set of politics and a completely separate government, which is why I'm trying to get all of them to work together and to create these easy little bites. And I can see that working. I can see the low-hanging fruit. I can see the fruit all over the ground right now, and that's what I'm picking up currently. And I'm going to top that tree if I have to. But I think it just takes working forward. But from a government perspective, Our local county government has been receptive, and as long as we continue to call and write letters and go to community meetings, they're hearing us, and there's small changes that we can see that we realize we're being heard. From a tribal perspective, we're still laying the groundwork.
Okay.
I really agree with you that the ideal is to have all those entities working together, and we're not satisfied. We should never be satisfied because there's always so much further to go. I would say that compared to when I talk to colleagues around the country, I think we're fortunate here to have a lot of synergies, that we're a small enough community, and there is sort of this ethos that people are talking about that at least allows us to have some common language. We have lots and lots of work to do on the processes and the systems, but we can't be discouraged by that, and we don't even have to wait until it's top down. We need to do it ground up, and that's the work that we're all invested in doing. So I think that's how we make change happen and bring those entities together and make it work.
All right. Would you join me in thanking our panel? In wrapping up our session this afternoon, we've invited a very special guest to come and join us. Liz Woody has ancestral, cultural, tribal lineage with the Navajo, the Warm Springs, Wasco, and Yakima tribes. She's published poetry, short fiction, essays, and is a visual artist as well. Her first collection of poetry, Hand in Stone, received a 1990 American Book Award. Her second and third collections of writing were published in 1994, Luminaries of the Humble by the University of Arizona Press, and 7 Hands, 7 Hearts, Prose and Poetry by the 8th Mountain Press. Liz is formerly the Director of Indigenous Leadership Program at the nonprofit environmental organization, the Eco Trust of Portland, Oregon, and presently works as the K-12 Program Coordinator for Science and Technology Center of Beaverton, Oregon. She's the recipient of the William Stafford Memorial Award for Poetry from the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association in 1995, and a finalist in the poetry category for the Oregon Book Awards for 1994. She's also an alumna of the first Kellogg Foundation's fellowship to the AIO Ambassadors Program. Liz received the J.T. Stewart Fellowship from Hedgebrook, given to women whose writing reflects commitment to transformational works. Please join me in welcoming Liz Woody. Liz, thank you.
I don't know how long you've been here today. I imagine this is kind of the pinnacle, and we'll get to go and have some food and refreshments here pretty quick. They asked me to come in and kind of give a little summation maybe of what was said, and I want to say that we have a great gathering here of some very humble people with great ambition and who have a great breadth of knowledge, which I think is really impressive. You've been given the privilege of an opportunity to hear what makes us unique here in the city of Portland. What many of you don't know is that we are actually sitting on what is known as the Rim of Fire, the Pacific Rim. The cultures of the Pacific Rim, you experience the taiko drumming, includes kind of a nexus of hub after hub of people who have claimed heritage and ancestry of their place, but also have spent enormous amounts of effort of exchange and commitment to getting to know one another. The Hawaiian peoples had chants and songs that took them from New Zealand and Fiji all the way to the Pacific. So I'm just saying, current by current, river by river, ancient trail by ancient trail, by knowledge of specific winds, we have all traversed great territories to make better business with each other. That aside, I was sitting here wondering what would have happened if Sakakawea, who was the woman who was with the Lewis and Clark Army, had not, our Lewis and Clark group of people who had come here, hadn't want to see the Pacific Ocean. Would she have been as dedicated, or would she have been as good a leader as she was, bringing the folks over here? Would Lewis and Clark have had as successful a trip if they had to have had a Newfoundland dog by the name of Seaman with them, that is a dog that was bred in the Americas, went to Europe and came back and was this superior breed that was fearless, loyal, huge, and, well, courageous, saved their butt several times. So I think of these things, you know, as the kineticism of the kineticism that we are bound to in terms of transferring energy, and that's what they talked about. They talked about total, you know, the rim of fire as opposed to fire and brimstone, preaching to the choir, talking about conversion. These things kind of came up. But also what I heard was a transfer of wealth. I heard sacrifice. I heard generous gifting, much like the salmon gifts itself from the ocean to the inland arid lands, their body of nutrients and purpose. My uncle said one time, you know, what if you only had one true love in your life, and that was the salmon? He was saying that's what salmon are. They have only one true love in their life, and that is their final death, and they meet before their final death. So I think that we have also within our group here an astonishing diversity. We have a high content in our story. We talk about the diversity here, but I think we also talk about the geological diversity within the lands that we live on here. We have a continent that is very, very diverse. We have families who are very much supported in their communities. We have gems within our neighborhoods. We have an ethos. We have an ecology. We have an equality. We have words about equity. We have talking about our accountability in our position. We have quick feedback loops. If it doesn't work, it dies. We have collaborators who are kind of self-selecting, who look to you for your success and want to bind with you and bond with you and exchange with you so they too can learn how to be successful. Therefore, you become an educator. You become a person who showcases. And you see and you tell and you broadcast to everyone what works. So we have that, a sharing, dynamic democracy. We have people voting with their dollars. We have a highlight of livability. We have increases of our motivation to visit. We understand sense of place. We are also cultural contractors. We are cultural doers. We are people who have investments in a future that we don't even know and cannot really describe. So what it comes back to is our survivability. What it comes back to is strengthening our world with good practice. So that's what I thought of what you said. And I'm going to conclude with a very small piece that talks about salmon. And it's called Conversion. And it's about the land. Changeable surface, sand, wind, brushes of grass, the composition of small particles, an abalone shell is a mutable language, fluid and clean, tonal, lilting in attenuated motion. On the surface, removed from image, is an iridescent garment of compassion. Boulders are lapped in flow. Voices ascend to the lunar disk. Simple paintbrush bloom, ecstatic in orange and red. Salmon pass through the river's mouth. Songs hum in the vocal throat of grace. Sagebrush around the loving fire waits in the aureola of pale courage. Hold still, touch the compact, smoldering soil. The flesh of salmon is translucent as the flame, heat and ardor, tender interior, smoke and calm weeds. The fire is a furious matter of watching. Familiar warm air rises as the red-tailed hawk, slow and loose, a pinpoint division on movement. Land uplifts the shadow higher, sun raises the cottonwood branches from the river's surface. The salmon wait inside rippling light on reversal of current. The song says, come or pass, be weak or strong, dance on light. Moon is in the color of pale belly's slow turn to sky. Scales illumine desire. Loosened moon particles collect on the fringe of grass and water. A brittle sheen of calcium and light combine, the bone blends with radiance. Fine combs of supple and rigid spines rest among the stone, the root, flesh, and water. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Liz, thank you very, very much. That's a wonderful way to wrap up our session here. Jeff, if you would join me up here. I know that there is a presentation that they've asked you and I to help make to our panelists up here today. We have some artwork that has been made especially for our folks up here that have served on the panel. So if you would, Jeff, go ahead and present those on behalf of all of us here in the room today, to thank our panelists one more time for joining us and for giving up their time and their expertise. Thanks, man. And now go forth and drink with confidence, because you are excused to... Why do I have a feeling that's going to become the mantra of the conference? But seriously, enjoy Portland, enjoy Oregon, enjoy your time here at this conference, and right now, enjoy the reception. Thank you very much.